4th, 2021. Roll call, we have everybody here except Councilman Place 1, John McCaw. He's not feeling well tonight. That's an excused absence. If you'll all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'll remain standing. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please take your seats. All right, 1, 2, and 3 are done. Item number 4, proclamations. We are going to become a Purple Heart City tonight. So if I can ask you gentlemen to come up to the podium. If you'll just all join me, I guess, okay, around. So I'd like to welcome these gentlemen from the Purple Heart Association, and I have a proclamation as the mayor to read tonight. Whereas the city of Garden Ridge has a proud history of supporting our active duty military and veteran population, and whereas the Purple Heart Medal, initially created in 1782 as a badge of military merit by General George Washington, is the oldest military decoration in present use, and whereas the Purple Heart Medal was the first award made available to the common soldier and is specifically awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces who have been wounded in combat or have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. And whereas the mission of the Military Order of Purple Heart is to foster an environment of goodwill among combat wounded veterans and their families, promote patriotism, support legislative initiatives, and most importantly, to make sure that we never forget the sacrifices of our military servicemen and women. And whereas the city of Garden Ridge has a large veteran population, with many of its veterans being Purple Heart recipients, and whereas Interstate 35 in Texas, which services the municipality of Garden Ridge, is now memorialized as part of the National Purple Heart Trail, and whereas the city of Garden Ridge appreciates all of its military veterans, combat veterans, Purple Heart recipients, and their families for the sacrifices they have made in defending our freedoms and wants to show them the honor they have earned. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Rob Erickson, Mayor of Garden Ridge, Texas, do hereby proclaim the city of Garden Ridge as a Purple Heart City. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and official seal of the city of Garden Ridge this 3rd day of November, 2021. We are a Purple Heart City. So, sir, if you'll introduce yourself and say a few words, please.
My name is Bill Crumlett. I'm the commander of the chapter here in San Antonio, Chapter 1836. And Mr. Mayor, it's a great honor to us. Well, it honors us. I have my Pete Rosie, who is a wonderful member, also a national member. And we have Tony Casada here, a national member, and our adjutant, Joe Hernandez. And so we're here representing the chapter. We have about 800 members in the chapter, making us the largest chapter in Texas and the largest chapter in the nation. And so Garden Ridge joins right now 44 other cities that have declared themselves Purple Heart cities, including cities like Houston and Dallas and Austin. You know that Governor Abbott signed a bill in May of 2017 declaring Texas as a Purple Heart state. So you're joining a good group of people.
Yes, sir.
And
long overdue for the city of Garden Ridge.
Yeah.
So
we have something for you as well. So
okay.
Let me get
please. Something for us.
Yeah. So there are 3 of them here, but I'll present you one of them.
Please.
Okay. That's a sign.
So these signs will go on the entrance to the city on 2252, front and back, and 3009.
I
So,
wonder if we could get the city council and yourself.
Absolutely.
And get a photo op, and if I could get somebody to run my phone too.
I think we can do that. We have a tremendous
Okay.
public information officer right
Okay,
here that
hold
can
on.
do all this. And city council, can I ask that you'll join us? Let's all do this over here, shall we?
Okay.
You want to hold the proclamation?
Yeah, I
Yep.
would like to hold the proclamation. And the sign. You, tell us where you want it to be.
Miss Linda, would you come and join us, please? This is all you.
I don't know, yes.
In fact, I would like you to hold the sign. Nope, this is all you.
Perfect. All right, guys. Okay, you're
Everybody
good.
smile.
Okay. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me take a little microphone. All right. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen? Thanks so much. Pleasure's all ours. Thanks. Very nice to meet you, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So how awesome is that? Long overdue, and I want to make sure that credit is given where credit is due, and this was all Miss Linda Crosland, our librarian. This was all her idea. She did all the legwork on this and made it happen for us. So thank you, Miss Linda. You are wonderful. That and the biggest trunk or treat ever. You're on cloud 9, right? It's good. Okay, thanks, council. We are on to item number 5, city employee recognitions and employee introductions. Nancy.
Thank you, Mayor. The first note that we received is from Shelby Trial, and he is recognizing the outstanding service that Ms. Kim Ryan continues to provide as the community center manager. He commends the city on her ability to deliver the complete package of performance and customer service. The next note that the city received was a thank you note from Rick Jellison to the police department and Citizens Patrol. He apparently was in the car show, and he also added that the car show was fantastic. His vehicle broke down as he was leaving, and the police department and CPA watched over his car while they waited for it to be picked up and brought home. He also says that Garden Ridge is an all-around great community with great people. Another thank you was received from Jason Miller. He states that he's thankful for fine human beings like Officer Dennis, who serves the city of Garden Ridge. He stated that Sergeant Dennis did his job like a pro and with respect, and he is thankful we have fine servants in our community like Officer Dennis, and he will forever be grateful on how he treated his teenagers and shared his wisdom that all new drivers should hear. Then we now have some employee recognitions for anniversaries. Ron Eberhardt, 7 years. Steve Steinmetz, 21 years. Thank you all for your hard work with the city of Garden Ridge.
Thank you, Nancy. Chief, that's been a quick 7 years. And Stephen, 21 years. Thanks for your service. And I didn't know you were a junior, so that's outstanding. Thanks for what you guys do. And we saw a glimpse of the dog that needs adoption up there briefly. We'll get to that later. All right, on to item number 6, citizen comment period. We have one resident signed up, Miss Brenda Elliott. Ma'am, if you'd like to come forward.
Dear Council, I am Brenda Elliott, a retired disabled vet, here to talk about the warning report that I received from the Garden Ridge Police Department on my RV that's parked on my property. I requested a copy of the warning report, and when I received it, I asked my neighbor, why did he not talk to me first before calling them? He denied it 3 times that he even called the police to file the report. Here's the report.
So, ma'am, we can't comment on that right now,
Okay.
but you
Okay.
you have 2.5 minutes remaining. Thank
Okay.
you.
I've asked my neighbors around me, and they said there was no problem having the RV in its location. My property is on a .75 acre corner lot. My 4 driveways faces Hickory Bend. And when the ordinance took place, there was no consideration for the corner lots on placing the RV. I've gone around and took pictures of the properties around me, and I'd like to dismiss the warnings that the police department has given me and the consideration that not all individuals are treated the same way in parking their RVs. I have pictures of those. And the falsified complaint that was reported by the police department by my neighbor to be disbanded, which he denied. So I have the pictures of my property and my neighbors who have RVs, and there's 3 of them that are in violation, what I understand that was explained to me. And I don't see any problem having this RV because it does not block any traffic coming up or down Hickory Bend whatsoever. So I do have the pictures, if you'd like to.
Ma'am, again, we can't comment on it tonight,
Okay,
but thank you very much.
do I leave it with?
You can leave it with the
Okay.
city secretary. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Elliott. Okay, we'll continue to move on. Item number 7, the consent agenda. These items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action on these items will be held unless requested by a council member. Public comment on these items may be heard during citizens' participation. However, that does not mean the item will be considered outside the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of approval of minutes for October 6, 2021, for the City Council regular meeting. B, financial statement, summary report, management's discussion and analysis of results, operations, September 30th, 2021. Resolution, so item C, resolution number 484-112021, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Ridge, Texas, joining with the state of Texas and political subdivisions of the state as a party in the Texas opioid settlement agreements. Item number D, resolution number 485-11-2021, a resolution of votes cast to elect Board of Directors for the Comal Appraisal District for the years 2022 through 2023. So, to the council, does anybody have any items they'd like to pull from the consent agenda? To the right? To the left? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda?
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda passes. Thank you very much. On to item number 8, staff reports. City Administrator Monthly Activity Report. Nancy, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. I just have a few little items that I would like to add to my report this month. The first one is I want to remind everybody about First Friday at Paul Davis Park, this coming Friday, November 5th, from 5 to 7 p.m. There will be food trucks and beverages. Everyone's invited to come and visit with the mayor and city council. The next item I want to let council know about is we are looking at a few projects that we may be able to utilize the American Rescue and Recovery funds. And as we determine whether those projects could possibly be paid for by those funds, then we will bring that information forward to council. The next item that I want to update council on is staff is working on our emergency preparedness. Currently, the chief and Public Works Department are working on evaluating our generator. We will be testing to make sure that everything we need, accessible, electricity, et cetera, within the next couple of weeks is working properly on, with that generator. We are installing 4 analog, old-fashioned landlines here, so we will always have phone communication, whether we have electricity or not, or generator power. Also, Stephen and the chief have also worked on having a radio tower with repeater installed up at the well site, up the hill, so that Public Works will have radios and they will be able to communicate with amongst their department, Public Works and Water, during an emergency, as well as communicate with our police department during an emergency. So those are a few things we're working on and wanted to update council on those items concerning emergency preparedness.
Thank you, Nancy. That's awesome.
welcome.
Council, that's obviously part of our project from this summer and going into this fall to make sure that we're ready for as much as we can be for the coming winter and whatever happens. So I applaud what the city's doing to accomplish those goals per your direction. So thank you very much. Is that it, Nancy?
That's all I have.
Outstanding. Thank you. Item B, Finance and Human Resources Monthly Activity Report. Ms. Karen Ford.
Good evening. A couple updates for personnel. So we have accepted a resignation from Officer Pilata from the police department, and Jacqueline Morano is no longer employed with the city of Garden Ridge. And then from the finance side, we are in the process of still getting ready for the annual audit. So that is going to be the week of November 15th. So if you're in the office and you see people that you're not used to seeing in the back offices, that'll be the auditors. And then we're also preparing for the annual workers' comp audit. That's everything.
Thank you, Karen. Council members, anything for Karen, Finance or HR? All right, great. On to item C, City Secretary Monthly Activity Report. Marissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. A couple things I just want to highlight on my report are, first, the upcoming holidays. City Hall and the library will be closed on Thursday, November 11th, Thursday, November 25th, and Friday, November 26th. Also, since the holidays are coming up, during the week of Thanksgiving, Garbage Service has a change in their schedule. So if your second collection day is usually on Thursday, it'll be pushed back by a single day and it'll occur on Friday. If your second collection day is usually on Friday, it'll be pushed back a day and it'll occur on Saturday. Then they also have 2 events I wanted to just point out. We do have the flyers in the packet for both the annual tree lighting, which I'm sure you'll hear more about later in the meeting, And then also the Lions Club has an event coming up this weekend, their annual Food Fest and auction. That's this Saturday.
Is that it, Marissa? Aren't we forgetting something?
I do have one more thing.
Please.
Save the best for the last. So before I provide a little background on this, I'm just going to get straight to the point and publicly congratulate our Assistant City Secretary and Communications Specialist, Kat Valvey, on being the recipient of a $500 scholarship to be used towards her certification as a Texas Registered Municipal Clerk.
And how many of those scholarships were given out across the state?
So for this exact scholarship, which this is the first time Kat is seeing this, she had no idea, and she hasn't actually received hers in the mail yet. Surprise. For this specific one is given out each year. And so Kat was chosen as the recipient for the Sandra Watkins Election Law Seminar Scholarship. It's a scholarship that's awarded to one person, and the recipient is chosen by a committee that considers many things when making their decisions. One of the considerations being a letter of support written by the city administrator expressing financial need and how educational and professional goals will be enhanced by receiving a scholarship. Of course, Nancy didn't settle for that minimum though, and she prepared a detailed, thought out, and very well stated letter. So much so that Kat might tell you that it's Nancy's moving words that won over the committee, but it's really more that Nancy's moving words beyond the minimum standards of expressing the financial need and goals was simply factual information about Kat and the kind of person that she is. Kat, you won over the committee, and I'm proud of you, so congratulations.
So we have a Texas State champion in our midst. We're good. Thanks, Marissa. Thank you, Kat. Way to go. Outstanding. Marissa, is that it? Okay. Council, anything from Marissa other than our ovation? Okay, great. On to item number D, Police Department Monthly Activity Report. Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Everything's pretty much contained in there. I wanted to elaborate on a couple of items. One being court. I always talk about court. Court has started back up again. We are doing both virtual and physical appearances. However, we don't have our normal court in November. Normally we have it fourth Thursdays of every month. Because of the holidays, every year we change it. So next court will be December the 9th, I believe it is. And so that combines both the November and the December court dockets into one because of the holidays. So I just wanted to update y'all on that, but things are going well with that. Our CPA volunteers have come back in to help with the paperwork and so forth during court. Also, I wanted to throw one thing on here that's not on my report. We had our Garden Ridge Citizen Police Academy Alumni Car Show. It was a huge success. There was a lot of work put into that by the members of the CPA. It was the largest we've had. Just shy of 200 show cars were here. The weather worked out, and it turned out to be the biggest fundraiser they've ever done. A little over $11,000 was brought in and cleared that they will graciously use to support the police department in future endeavors. So that was a fantastic fundraiser for them this year. I just wanted to let y'all know that. And I have nothing further, sir.
We got to emphasize that car show because that was absolutely amazing. Our biggest one yet.
Huge.
In terms of cars, participants, spectators, and money raised. I got 2 comments walking around that it was the best car show that they had ever seen, and they'll be back, and that it was better than the Scottsdale, Arizona annual car show. From
Wow.
2 people in 2 different sections of the car show. So that was absolutely amazing. What's that? It's huge. So, and I know we've been clapping a lot, but the CPA and the
CPA deserves it. They do.
we'll just keep on clapping along with the thunder outside. So, thank you, Chief.
CPA did
Anything else to add?
No, they just did a fantastic job.
It's crazy. It was amazing. Council, anything for the chief? Okay, way to go, Jesse. I know that you had a huge part of that car show. Anything to add with that?
Just that, I had that part at the end of the meeting, so he stole my thunder, but thank you, Chief, for doing that. So
No worries.
10% of that goes to the Wonder Club of Comal County also, so.
Wonderful. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so, yeah, no, great show.
Fantastic.
And I'm sorry, I didn't know they had this slide in here, so I'll go ahead and mention
You bet.
this. We have put this out, so most everybody's aware that Officer Hackenberg, back on August the 8th, was involved in a serious car crash while he was on his motorcycle. And so we're doing a fundraiser. The CPA is also backing this and doing a lot of the legwork for us. We're going to have a barbecue. We have barbecue plates on sale, and those are being given to us at a very good price by our friends over at Bluebonnet Palace in Selma. They always support law enforcement and local events, so they're donating their venue to us on December the 2nd. So we will be over there from 5 to 8. We will have the barbecue plates. They're $15 a piece, and then we are also going to have a live auction and probably I believe a silent auction goes along with that from 5 to 7. So for all of you that want to come out and support him, we're doing that to help out with, this was an off-duty injury, so we're trying to help augment his medical bills. Turns out, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, turns out the other guy did not have insurance at all. So it's not a good situation for him right now.
Another reason why we all need to be there.
We
Thank
would
you, Chief.
appreciate that.
All right, anything else for the chief? All right, item number 8E, Public Works Department Monthly Activity Report. Stephen, you're on.
Thank you. November is the start of a new dumpster month, so the dumpsters will be available every weekend for the next 4 weekends. We did some street repairs on Benzal, repairing the edges of the roads because they're deteriorating quite bad, so those have been repaired or patched. We're looking into getting bids for doing some work at the rental properties that are over there on Schoenthal Road. We're having some water leak inside them from somewhere, and it's kind of a mystery of how it's getting in. We caught 2 wild hogs in Wildwind last month. We also had somebody call in about a bat on Sundew Circle, so our animal service employee took it to get submitted, and it did come back positive for rabies. It did not have any contact with anybody, so it was clear on that one. So just to kind of keep in mind, bats do carry some diseases, so nobody should really touch them. They should just call our services to come retrieve it and have it tested. We have 2 dogs ready for adoption and 12 cats ready for adoption. And that one concludes the Public Works part of the report. Is there any questions?
Anybody have anything for Stephen with Public Works? You want to continue with water?
Yes.
Okay.
Last month, we used 75.47 acre feet of the Edwards. That brings us up to 300.46 acre feet for the year. We have 332.96 acre feet left. Trinity, we've only used 2.45 for last month, and for the year, we've used 436.55. All of our samples came back good. Our water loss went up slightly last month, up to 3.8%. We had a few service lines that we had to repair, so that's probably going to account for the water loss when we start doing the calculations for next month. That's all I have to add for the water. Any questions?
Thank you, Stephen. Council, any questions for Stephen? Anything to add? Water otherwise? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 8F, Library Monthly Activity Report. Ms. Crosland, you were on, trunk or treat.
Thank you. I did want to just give a little more on trunk or treat since it was so recent. I did a little PowerPoint presentation, and it's going to come up. So I have to actually do this because it was set. Okay, so our trunk or treat was last Sunday. We had at least, it was going to do itself. We had at least 652 people who were present that we could count. And I have lots of thank yous. Thank y'all for a lot of people who helped participate. Of course, to the many people who made this event a huge success. First of all, the GRCP who directed people where to park. It made it so easy for them. It made them feel welcome, and they knew where to go. And there's our fearless leader, Mayor Rob Erickson, and that wonderful pumpkin patch. I thought that was spectacular. Treats for puppies from Councilwoman Kay Bauer. I'm sorry, I said councilwoman. I should have said councilperson. Don't put me in PC prison. And what would trunk or treat be without our city administrator, Nancy Kane? Yes. And this mini haunted house, the poor people had it almost up and it fell back down, but they did manage to get some screams of delight. And the Lions Club was there, always our supportive people. And I believe there's a barrel train without the barrel. Dick Holloway's eyes are actually closed in that picture, and I just thought he should open them for the kids. That's the last person who tried to speed down 3009. No. There's our wonderful women's club who are just out of this world. And we had a hearse with that enormous skeleton and all kinds of things, as you can see, to Space Force. The candy came out the end of that rocket, and it was kind of fun. Kids thought that was a great thing. And there's our little book fairy. She was so adorable. I thought of being a boat with a book fairy, but no. We had wonderful food, of course. Gracie's and Just Dogs 34, both were there. It made for a good time. And we couldn't have done it without these two guys. They just really worked so hard. I'm so grateful to Eric and to Dwayne for setting up and taking down. And we appreciate the sponsors who actually called me up and said, "Can we give you money to do this?" I said, "Sure." So it was a great time, and I just appreciate you made a lot of people, a lot of children very happy, and I think some people too. One other thing I wanted to point out at the bottom of of my report, just one little sentence. It says, "Once again, the library earned Texas state accreditation." And that may not sound like a big deal, but it really is, because that is the standard that's set by the Texas State Library and Archives Commission. The purpose of these standards is to promote quality library service to all Texans, to raise the expectations of library clientele, and to provide an authoritative document by which library quality may be measured. So by being accredited, I have a lot of resources, and one big one is access to grants and funding, advisory groups, consulting, interlibrary loans, library science collection, and youth and teen program services. So it's a nice thing to do. I think this is about the 10th or 11th year that we've been accredited. I've never really made a big deal of it, but it is good that we have these standards, and we're happy to set that standard. Excuse me. And the last thing that's our little decal. So the last thing I wanted to mention is to remind you of Veterans Day. It's going to be held next Wednesday right here in this room at 10:30 a.m. I love this little statement because it's a true thing. As you can see, I have my board all set up. Oh, you might want to take a minute to read that. What is a veteran? I think that's so profound. I don't know if you can read. A veteran, whether active duty, discharged, retired, or reserve, is someone who, at one point in his life, wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount of up to and including his life. That's profound. It's very important to me to honor our veterans. So I have my PSA over there on the board. We're going to have a distinguished speaker. Some of you may have heard of him. It's Rob Erickson. And it's going to be an honor to have you speak, Mayor. I think, instead of the JROTC from Canyon, as we've had in past years, the one from Davenport is going to be here, so we're on home turf. Colonel Almond is supposed to bring his young people. Honoring our veterans is something I do feel very strongly about, and I also strongly believe we need to honor the veteran spouse. These spouses enabled our military to go and do what needed to be done to stay home, encouraging them and praying for them. They too served our country nobly and bravely. And so I hope you will come, everybody will come, even if you're not a veteran. And above all, if you want to thank a soldier, be the type of American worth fighting for.
Thank you, Ms. Linda.
Thanks.
As always, that was awesome. Council, anything for Linda Crosland?
Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to say thank you, and I think you should toot your horn, and whether you receive it 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years, your accreditation, that's also a kudo and deserves an applause.
Thank you so much. Oh, that's very kind.
We have the best library and librarians in Texas, and I would say in the nation. Thank you.
You're very kind.
All right. That concludes item number 8 in the agenda. We're on to item number 9, City Engineer Project Status Reports. Sam. Love the tie. The floor is yours, sir.
Good evening. Don't have too much to add to this list. Everything is pretty much set. For item 2, the Force Main project, we did receive the as-built. We made some comments to the contractor. They're supposed to revise them and send them back to us. So once we have that information or the updated plan set, we can release or request the release of retainage. And on the land development, the Cleckley property, I've met with the developer's engineer and provided comments, and now we're waiting for him to resubmit his package. So that's pretty much all I have to report tonight.
Okay. Council, anything for our engineer, Sam? Sam, thanks for all the work that you and Pat are doing, but specifically you. I know behind the scenes you work incessantly, day in, day out, with all of the projects we have going on through the city. So although your report is short, it's all, we've already read it, and thank you. And we appreciate everything that you do for us.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes item number 9. On to item number 10, City Commission and Committee Reports, Recommendations, Possible Actions. Planning and Zoning Commission. Ms. Karen Diaz, please come forward, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I thought it was on. Actions by Planning and Zoning in October. The first item has to do with Ordinance 210. The commission was going to bring forth a recommendation to waive termination of Commissioner Porter for having 3 consecutive absences. However, on October 14th, Commissioner Porter submitted a letter of resignation. So at this time, I'm submitting a request for council's acceptance of Art Porter's resignation from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Karen. Council, any questions about the resignation? If there's no questions, can I get a motion to accept the resignation?
I make a motion to accept the resignation of Art Porter from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
We have a recommendation or a motion to accept it. Any seconds?
I second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion on the resignation of Art Porter? Call it to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We accept the resignation, unfortunately, of Mr. Art Porter. Karen, the floor is still yours.
Action item number 2. Pension Mark submitted the preliminary plat for their office center to be located southwest of the intersection of Nacogdoches FM 2252 and Nacogdoches Loop. The preliminary plat does follow their master plan with regard to easement and detention pond location. The site will also be designed to accommodate future TxDOT plans, and they will tie into the existing water line along FM 2252. For sewer, the site will utilize the grinder pumps and tie into the new sewer line. Planning and Zoning recommends preliminary plat approval.
Thank you, Karen. So, council, this is one of those things that I just complimented Sam on. He's worked very hard and diligently with Pension Mark to make sure everything is correct and planning for the future with TxDOT and 2252 and everything that, the things that we forget and take for granted, Sam and Pension Mark have done their due diligence on and worked very hard. We should have a representative from Pension Mark here tonight. Sam, do we? Okay. Awesome. Okay, please.
If you have questions, and it's good that he's here.
Council, do we have any questions or concerns that we'd like to address? No? Okay. So can I get a motion to accept the recommendation regarding the preliminary plat for Pension Mark Office Center?
I make a motion to approve the, where is it, I'm looking at the agenda. Regarding the preliminary plot for Pension Mark Office Center located on 2252.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I second the motion to approve the plat.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Call to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And again, just for everybody in the audience and out there online, I know this is going quick, but this is because of the great work that Pension Mark has done with our engineers and our Planning and Zoning Commission that do all the legwork for all of us. So thank you, Ms. Diaz and Sam and Sir, for everything you guys have done. So it makes our job so easy. Okay, Karen, the floor is still yours for a monthly update.
I just have one more item for information purposes. We received a commentary on our draft ordinance from Bryce Cox, a professional city planner with the law firm of Denton, Navarro, Rocha, Bernal, and Zach. Mr. Cox gave us additional information with regard to the commercial and retail zoning districts. After listening to comments made by commissioners, he agreed to do a little more analysis to the draft so that we wouldn't write the ordinance in such a manner as to be contrary to the kinds of businesses that we're hoping to attract. So at this point, we are waiting to hear back from Mr. Cox. And so that's where we are on the draft ordinance. Any further questions?
Not a question, but just a comment. I'm about halfway through watching that. The P&Z meeting is about 2 hours long, and I think he does have some good points that I hadn't really thought all the way through. So I'm glad he's weighing it a little bit. And just to clarify, we have not, have we hired him? Because that was the rumor going around that the city has hired a city planner. He's just working through
our attorney's office. Yes,
I just wanted to
correct.
put that out there because there was a lot of buzz about that at one point.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think he's doing a good job.
Any other questions?
Council, anything else? Jesse?
And I think also, he also found some conflicts between the ordinances also, so he's identifying those as well. So he might have missed some things, so.
Yes, he gave us a lot of food for thought during our meeting, and so we are so happy to have his comments.
Thank you, Karen. Council, anything else? Thanks for all your hard work for the entire commission.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Okay, on to 10B, Quarry Commission. They did not meet in September, so there's no update at this time. On to 10C, the Water Commission. Receive recommendation regarding request for water leak adjustment for 21926 Parkview Drive for the billing period of March 23rd, 2021 through April 23rd, 2021. Mr. Mueller, welcome to the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and council members. For C1 there, for the water leak adjustment, after, I'm sure some of you probably watched the Water Commission meeting, and after that meeting, there's some additional information that came to light. After talking to it with Nancy and Stephen, we'd like to pull that and review it again from the Water Commission and bring it back to you next month.
So council, what we'd like to do is push that back to the Water Commission, and they'll come back to us later. Everybody good with that? Just a consensus? Okay, thank you. Mr. Mueller.
Thank you, sir. All right, a big portion of our meeting last month, if you don't mind me continuing, sorry.
It's all you.
All right. Big portion of our meeting last month was to talk about the water rate study that we have done recently. We did this study with the help of the city staff and our water rate subcommittee. They put a lot of hours into this. Several days of work went into this, and there's a very long presentation. There's a whole bunch of information, as you probably noticed, that's in your packets. Vice Chair Harshberger is going to come up here, and he promises me that he's going to condense all those hard days of work into 30 minutes or less and bombard you with a bunch of numbers and statistics and our recommendation from the Water Commission. So,
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Kevin, welcome.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
floor is
Mayor.
yours.
Mr. Mayor, council members, appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'll start off by saying it was a lot of work, and the news is difficult to get through. So this is not the world's most upbeat presentation, I guess. Also want to reiterate that this was the third year for this process, and the first year that we began to transition this into a city staff-led process, with the Water Commission doing more of the oversight in accordance with Ordinance 210. So I just want to credit the city staff for the hard work that they put in, many more hours than we did. So I'll go ahead and jump into it if I can make the machine work. All right, so just a quick look at what we have to get through tonight. And again, it's been in your packet, so I'm going to go kind of quickly through a few of the slides, but if you need me to repeat something, don't hesitate to jump in and let me know. Some quick background. The most salient part here is it's the third year, as I mentioned. The first year, it was a percentage increase, trying to spread the burden as equally as possible as we made the water department independent from city funding. The second go around, you approved a base rate increase and then a rate structure that was progressively increasing with a higher rate to the higher volume tiers. So that's kind of where we are now, and then we have some proposals to move forward. So this process always begins with design objectives. We didn't have council approved objectives, so we kind of inferred what they would be, and these are what we were using. And just to emphasize a couple quick points, the city staff in particular was focused on full cost recovery, which the American Water Works Association terms that revenue sufficiency. That's our number one task, to make sure that the rate structure will produce the revenue that you approved in your budget. Secondary objective was revenue stability, to try to not have to do this over and over again eventually. I don't think we're there yet. And then just a note, what was added this year based on staff recommendation, kind of where we're at, is to add cost of service principles. I have no free water in quotes. We don't have any free water. That's not really the right way to phrase that. But there is concern to make sure that each class of rate customers is paying a share that's based on the actual cost they impose on the system. That's what that term means. And then, of course, we still want to encourage water conservation. What's different is that a previous objective was to minimize impact to low volume users. As we implemented this new structure over the last 2 years, that's been removed and replaced by the cost of service principles objective. So moving on. That's your current rates. They should be in your packet. You can refer back to them as you need to as we go forward. Just a quick look at consumption over the last 4 years. Trend I want to highlight is the growth has been slowing, but we've had less new residential construction. And then also, if you look at the last couple of years, there's been a marked shift away from the higher tiers and toward the lower tiers. If high-volume consumers had simply stopped using water, then the way these tiers are structured, we'd see a lower total. The fact that we don't see a lower total means we've also had increased consumption at the lower tiers. So I think that reflects both the climate, I shouldn't say climate, the weather patterns that we've seen over the last 2 years, where it's been a little cooler and a little damper for part of the irrigation season. And it also reflects the pricing structure where we've had that significant conservation incentive. So keep those things in mind. I also want to point out at the bottom that the fluctuation over the last 4 years has been plus or minus 10%. So previously we'd briefed it's about 17%, but again, the last 2 years are a little bit more consistent. But but it's a forecast, and so we're very weather dependent on the revenue that the water department brings in. So just keep in mind that I'm going to show you a lot of numbers. They look like they're down to the, to the penny, but there is fluctuation in the demand. All right, this is the same slide, but for outside the city limits, and similar trends in terms of consumption. Growth has continued. It's not, they're smaller numbers. It's plus or minus 20% on that one. All right, same idea, but what we've attempted to do here is show you, we've taken those numbers and normalized them. So you have consumption as a percentage of total gallons, and then we have the users as a percent of total bills. And what we're trying to highlight for you here is that if we consider where that 50% mark is, or the median user, again, with the quality of data we have, we would say that that median user falls, for inside the city, the very bottom end of tier 1, and for outside the city, is probably at the low end of tier 1. So we have more than half our users are low volume users. Similarly, if you take the total gallons divided by the total accounts, you get roughly 16,000 gallons per month as a sort of a mean, if you will, usage inside the city and a little over 8,000 outside the city. This slide just gives you a comparison with some of the neighboring cities, and I'm going to show you another comparison here in a moment, but we're trying to illustrate that Garden Ridge is significant value at the low end, and we're competitive at the upper end. All right, busy slide. I'm not going to linger here, but it's in your packets. But the idea here is the yellow is Garden Ridge. The orange highlighting represents those volume quantities that were on the previous slide. Green represents pretty close to the mean customer. And then you can compare as you wish with other utilities. These are based on published information as of September 20th, whatever is available on their website. So it's not an exhaustive comparison. But it's the best that we could come up with. And we in particular will highlight Fair Oaks Ranch, which we've determined is a closer comparison city to us in terms of the type of homes and lots and water patterns. And they also have a similar rate structure. And this is that same information just graphically. I want to highlight a couple of things. First, if you look at the top line, which is SAWS, there are several other cities that do this. Their tiers end at a much lower volume, and then they have a constant slope. In other words, their marginal cost of water remains the same for those higher tiers. And then there's a few that are lower. Garden Ridge is the blue curve line right in the middle. And so down at the low end, everything kind of comes together on the scale of that chart. But what you can see is, if you just kind of look at the curvature line or the slope, we stay below the marginal cost for other cities until you get up around 60, 65,000 gallons. But at the upper end, that curvature is a little bit more. So we have a significant incentive at the high end for conservation. And the reason I show that is I think we've done about as much as we can at the high end. All right, if you'll bear with me, I want to walk through this slide a little bit because this is the first time we've tried to present this. We went back and tried to figure out how is our model that we use doing? How does it compare to reality? So the column on the left where it says model forecast, that was the prediction that was briefed to you last year as far as what we expected to happen over the course of the year. The column that says fiscal year 21 amended budget is exactly what it says. So that would be mid-year time frame. And then the end of year utility report is actually end of the fiscal year. So I'll come back to that. But going back to that left column, we have the revenue from base rates, the revenue from volume sales, and a total revenue. So you can compare that compared to the amended budget. You see the numbers are fairly close. And that delta gives you an idea about the sensitivity of the model. M&O expenses went up slightly, but not too much. Debt service, of course, is the same because that's pulled directly from the debt schedule. So that net revenue number, though, I have to talk about a little bit. Your model, the numbers you're going to see, they treat the reserves as a restricted reserve. In other words, as an expense. So what the model would have said last year is a net revenue forecast of a little over 7,000. But in that model, it included $102,235 for the AMI project. I'm sorry, not for the AMI, for the reserves that we wanted to build, right? So if we put that back in, that gives you that 109,000. That's the net revenue plus the required reserve. So that's a number you can compare with for performance sake. And you can see that what we actually did was about 63,000. So we're 46,000 under the projection. The AMI, I just want to point out that that was in the model last year, so that was not an unknown expense. It came in a little higher than anticipated in the amended budget, but the newer numbers are somewhere around 639,000. I don't have an exact, it's not been audited yet, so I can't give you an exact number. But it was a little more than what was anticipated. And then you can see what that impact was on reserves. We predicted 7.1 months of reserves. You actually have 6.5 months based upon the end of fiscal 21. However, with the new change to debt service, that's now 6 months reserves, right? There's additional debt service for next year, which we'll talk about as we go on. The end of year utility report is simply there because the budget doesn't break out volume sales and revenue from base rates. So that is that breakout. So you can compare the revenue from base rates is pretty much exactly what was predicted, which is what you would expect since it's a fixed charge. Revenue from volume sales shows a little bit lower, but please keep in mind that the end of year utility report is September to September. So it has a full quarter at the previous year's rates. So it will always indicate a little low. I'll pause here just in case you have any questions on this slide. It's new and detailed. Okay, moving on. So we take all that information, we put it and update the model that is used. So some changes to be aware. The total consumption's increased by about 160,000 gallons. The number of accounts went up by 4, so it's not really terribly significant. The assumptions that are in the model, however, we maintained the assumption of 0.5% growth per year for the smaller meters, and then added a 10% growth per year for the large meters. And that seems unusual, but that translates to plus 8 meters on the small side and plus 2 meters on the large side. So we think it's a reasonable assumption. Projected change in consumption, that minus 1% is still there. That's been the same in the model all the time. That's like people start using, low flow toilets and things like that. So you take advantage of technology to conserve water. That's what that means. And then we kept the 10%, for a rate increase of 10%, the model assumes a 2% per year reduction in demand. So that's kind of a price elasticity figure. And that's the same value that was in the model in the previous 2 years. All right, we apply the budget expenses that you have approved already, and then we look at what do we need to do with reserves. So the objective that we were given was to have 12 months O&M reserves plus debt service, full year debt service, and we try to build that back up within 5 years. That requires setting aside $116,516 per year. And in your packet, there's a lot more detail on how those numbers are determined. All right, so that brings us to the meat of this. I'm just going to go ahead and build the slide here. So we wanted to look at cost of service principles. We needed to come up with some way to illustrate where we're at on that. So if you take the total expenditures that have been approved, and you simply divide that by the total number of accounts, you get $90.80 per account. If you take that same total expenditures and divide by the forecast for 309,000, well, really 300 million gallons, excuse me, that comes out to about $5.87 per 1,000 gallons. Now, those numbers are not meant to be taken literally, right? No one's going to pay that exact amount. You could do that. One possibility price structure is everybody pays the same per each gallon, but they don't really impose the same costs at each rate class. So think of those as really how much revenue would have to be generated on average. So, but it gives you an idea of where we're at, and we can compare that to the current bills, and what you will see for the average user outside the city, 8,000 gallons, their cost is $57.40, and if you look down the column, you'll see a red line that says $96.14. So that's where they would need to be for those users to be paying an average share of the cost. And then the same thing is true for the residential inside users. This is nothing unusual. We know this, right? We tried to minimize impact to low volume users, and it makes sense with conservation incentive that the high volume users are paying a little bit more. But we may be getting to the point where we need to adjust that a little bit. All right, so this is that base rate that we have that includes 5,000 gallons. So that means, in essence, that's discounted water. I wouldn't call it free water. But you can see the total amount of consumption of the last 3 years. It's in those tiers, and it's a significant amount. And the trend is that it's increasing. So what you should really think about that is it represents a minimum charge. So when a utility includes a certain amount of water in their base rate, what that's saying is even if you use less than that, you still pay that as a minimum charge. That's the intent. But right now, that minimum charge is less than the cost of water. So especially from the staff, the perspective is Garden Ridge cannot sustain the current base tier discount. It's going to have to be adjusted. All right, so then the commission gets to work and we start looking at what are the options. We tried to give you 3 big ways to look at this. So one was if we keep the same structure, what sorts of changes do we have to make to the base and tier rates? So we ran several cases looking at that. And then we modified that by looking at how quickly you build reserves. We looked at 5 years, 7 years, or none. Don't worry about it. Then we looked at, okay, another option is to take our tier structure and restructure that by getting rid of the first 5,000 gallons. In other words, shift the structure to where we start charging volume rates at the first gallon. So we looked at that, and then it's the same basic process. So when you see the model, cases that have numbers, those are with the current rate structure, current tier structure, just adjusting the rates. Cases that start with letters are going to be the proposed new tier structure where volume charges begin at the beginning case. And you'll also see the baseline case in your packet where you do nothing. And this is kind of like the summary of that. So the orange one at top, that's your do nothing case, and you can see we'd be $150,000 in the hole next year if we make no changes. All right, then we started looking at, all right, let's change the base rate and the tiers. So remember that in our tiers, that first number represents the percentage increase for the first 2 tiers, and the number afterwards is for tiers above that second tier rate. You take the difference between the 2 tiers below it and apply that percentage. So that's what gives it the curve. It's like a marginal increase. And what you should see out of that is even when we go all the way up to case 10, which is a significant increase, while we show positive revenue, please note there's no recovery of reserves. So in order to recover any reserves at all, we had to have a $10 base rate increase, 7% increase of the first 2 tiers, and a 2% marginal increase, which is significant, and that still only recovered your reserves in a 7-year period instead of a 5-year period. So what do you have to do to not change the rate structure? You have to go to case 11. So the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that actually meet or partially meet the objectives that we mentioned. So 11 will get you where you need to, but reserves in 7 years instead of 5. 13, I kind of, the subcommittee said, well, let's just throw all caution to the wind. What would it be if we put an equivalent percentage increase across the board? What would that percent have to be? And as you can see, it's about 20%. And then case 14 is, okay, let's leave the tiers alone. What base rate increase would you need to have the same effect? I'll mention that a little bit later, but if you increase the base rate by $15, we would just generate the revenue required. All right, switching to, all right, let's take our tiers. Let's shift them 5,000 gallons to the left. In other words, they start at 1 gallon. That's case A. So if we just made that shift, we'd still be short, right? So case C is make that shift, but also increase the base rate by $2.50. And that projects a net revenue of $6,000, and that's above the required reserve of $116,000. So remember, in the model, it treats that required reserve as restricted. All right, case D is, well, what if we needed more comfort? And I just highlight to you that we were about 42,000 short this year, so that gives you an idea of the sensitivity of the model. Case F, we realize that if the council decides to change those tier structures and get rid of that first 5,000 gallons of discounted water, that's a significant change. So if you did only that and did not impact the base rate, You could get by, but you would have to sacrifice building those reserves to 7 years instead of 5. And the reality is what that really means is you'd have an increase later to make up that base rate. Case G just shows you that you can play with those reserves however you want to and come up with equivalent amounts, right? So that's not really significant. Going back to case 14, what I want to illustrate there is if you take the value of that first 5,000, that shift, it turns out to be worth about $14.10. So case 14, that base rate increase is really equivalent to case C, only with a $1 increase of base rate instead of $2.50. And that gives you an idea, again, about the relative sensitivity. Okay. All right. So we'll get now to the actual recommendation that came forward from city staff and has been agreed to with the Water Commission and what we're presenting to you.
Can stand by really quick, Council. So that's a lot of information. Anybody have any questions thus far for our Vice Chair, the Water Commission? Okay, keep going. Thank you.
Okay. So the recommendation is for council to adopt case C, which is a $2.50 increase of the base rate for the 3/4 inch meters. The increase for the larger meters would be based on the same methodology as previous, which means the 1 inch meters would be 10% more, and the 1.5 inch meters would be 75% more, and the 2 inch meters would be double on the base rate. And then the tier values, they actually have the same rates, but they drop 5,000 gallons, right? So that $2.82 inside city limit, tier 1 starts at 1 gallon instead of starting at 5,001 gallons. The impact on that, according to the model, this slide, again, is pretty busy. All you really need to see here is it does project positive revenue. Don't worry too much about the out years. It's like a weather forecast. It's not very good 7 days out. What I want to highlight to you is on the right-hand side of the chart in the middle, there's a series of bar graphs. So the orange colors are if we kept the present rate structure, and the blue colors represent the proposed case C. The darker shades represent your fixed volume portion, and the lighter shades represent the revenue from the volumetric sales, your tier structure. So what you see is it greatly increases revenue, and there's a small increase in the portion that is from fixed charges. So it doesn't quite meet the recommendation for revenue stability because it still predominantly depends on volume sales. But again, by shifting those tiers to the left, more of that volume is at consumption levels that are not that price sensitive. So we think it still adds some to revenue stability, even though maybe not as much as some other options. This slide here kind of compares current versus future at 4 different levels of consumption. The yellow simply shows you that, for instance, if you look at the 15,000 gallon customer, they would be paying that same rate that they'd be paying next year is pretty much what they would have paid for 20,000 this year. So everything's just shifted by 5,000 gallons. In the red, you see the delta. That would be the change in the bill at that level. And please keep in mind that customers typically don't pay the same rate every month, right? It changes. They have low volume months and then high volume months, but it gives you a sense of the level of impact. All right, what does that do to our comparison cities? Since we're taking a lot from the low volume users, we go from the bottom of that chart from number 2 to number 5. And then for 10,000, you go from number 1 to number 3. There is no change at the upper levels. The numbers change, but the position doesn't in the comparison. Keep in mind also, those other cities are their present rates. They're going through the same process as we are right now. All right, realizing that that is sort of a contentious recommendation, we also have 2 alternates for your consideration that meet your objectives. We have mentioned them before. It's case 14 and case F. Case 14 is primarily applicable if you want to maintain the same rate tier. You can do that through that case. But you would have that $15 increase on the base rate. I'll show you what that does, the impact, shortly. Case F is we will go ahead and make the change to our volume tiers, but we will accept a little additional risk in our reserves for this year and not include the base rate increase. So you would have to extend that reserve recovery horizon out to 7 years. Oh, let me back up. I was told as a good staff officer back in my military days that you have to always give views of other. I will point out that there was one city staff member that was in favor of case D. And while we don't have that one in yellow, the reason for that is simply, if you look to the right, again, that's the sensitivity in the model, that 42,000. So not going that way this year probably means in a subsequent year there'll be an additional base rate increase. So that is an option to consider, but not recommended by the Water Commission. All right, so what's the impact? So this is case F, where you assume a little bit more risk on reserves. No change to base rates, but the same change to the tier rates as case C. This is the comparison slide. So what you'll see, again, if you look at that chart with the bar graphs, you'll see the bars went up by just about the same amount, but most of that increase is in the volume and not in the fixed charge. So it doesn't add much to revenue stability. And here's the comparison at those same 4 bill levels between case F with no base rate increase and case C. So you can see the difference to the consumer is really not terribly significant in terms of actual dollars out of pocket, but it does lower those percentages at the low volume users. All right, the benchmark impact is roughly the same, only instead of going to the bottom on the top chart, you go to place 4 instead of place 5. All right, case 14, this is increasing the base rate only and keeping the same tier structure. So you have to add $15 to the base rate. You would not change your tier structure, it would stay the same as it is right now. There are some advantages to doing this. First of all, again, look at the bar charts. You increase the revenue you want, but the solid part is significantly larger, which means a more steady revenue stream for the utility throughout the year, because you'd be based on fixed charges and not volume charges. All right. One possible disadvantage, other than the shock to the low volume user, is if you note the net revenue projection is only $546, so you take a little bit more risk there. But I would highlight, you remember that demand elasticity assumption we put in there? So this was almost a 50% increase for those base tiers. So that means the model is going to lower that consumption by a 4 to 5%. And that's probably not realistic. So we think this is under predicting the revenue, but there's significant risk in that number. And then here's that same comparison, but this is between case C and case 14. You should immediately notice that one of the advantages of doing this is every consumer has the same increase. But in percentage terms, it's a more significant increase at the low end. So it would take our curve and flatten it just a little bit. All right, this is the impact on those 5 case study cities, and it's the same as case C, really. We go from 2 to 5 on the low volume, and 1 to 3 on the mid volume, and no significant change on the upper end. I'll put this one here just to let you compare the different rate structures. Again, it's a little hard to read, and we have 2 up there. The one on the lower right shows the low volume range. So the yellow is our current rate structure, and then you see in blue is the increase by $15 on the base rate. So it basically takes a curve and just shifts it straight up. And then the other 2 are changing. We start adding volume charges right at the beginning. That's why there's no flat segment on that line. And so case C is the one on the top, and then case F is without the base rate increase. So that has the effect of moving the whole curve to the left. This superimposes the percent of total consumption by tier, so that's your number of users. Actually, not number of users, number of gallons per tier. And what you can see is any change to the upper end is not going to make a terribly significant change on revenue. That's why I said earlier we've gotten as far as we can on that end. So whatever we do is going to have to impact the low end, and that's where small changes make a big difference. All right, we did not compare commercial rates, so this is just kind of for your information, but it shows you each of the cases and the impact on commercial rates as you consider how that might, and I shouldn't say commercial rates, let's say big meters, as you consider future development. Each case has roughly the same impact, but because the meter rates are set based on a percentage of the base rate, the actual dollar figure is larger. For instance, a 15% base rate increase for the 3/4 inch meters translates to a $30 increase for the next meter size up. So in summary, the water department reserves are at their minimum. We really can't go below 6 months. With added M&O expenses and the debt service expense, and I should point out that that's primarily due to the 2252 relocation of water lines, that project that was approved. So there's really unavoidable cost. But with that has generated that revenue shortfall. And it's a small utility, so we're talking small numbers. $100,000 increase in debt service is directly out of the revenue. The forecasting model that we use has performed well in previous years, and so the Water Commission recommends that council approve Case C as the rate structure, but for revenue stability, revenue sufficiency, and cost of service. F and 14 are also viable alternatives. 14 raises base rate but preserves your tier structure. Case F assumes added risk with reserves in the near term. And so that's a lot of information. And that concludes our presentation, and so stand by for your questions.
Thank you, Kevin. That was tremendous. Thank you for tonight and all of your hard work. Thank you for your presentation last Tuesday for the Water Commission and your hard work. So, Jim, if you want to come up as well. So a couple things I'd like to say as the mayor. Our commissions that we have in the city are all volunteers. And our commissions do the hard work for the city and our residents as volunteers and professionals so that they can bring recommendations to council with the city staff so that you, as elected officials up here on the dais, can make decisions based on their recommendations and their hard work. They do the math, and we get to vote on that. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to the entire Water Commission, to all of our commissions, but specifically to your entire commission and to the two of you for all of your hard work. So thank you for what you guys do. That was a tremendous presentation with utmost professionalism, and you kept it at a level that all of us, I won't say us, that I can keep up with. And your volunteers, so that's a very expensive presentation and a lot of work that would cost the city a tremendous amount of money that it doesn't because you volunteered your hard time, so thank you. I'd also like to say that thank you to the city staff for all of your hard work with the Water Commission, and specifically to Council Member Jesse Valdez, that none of this happens without you and your service prior and your corporate knowledge and all the work and the hard work that you did to make this happen. So thank you all for what you did. A couple other things. Our budget is with a city of, it's unofficial, but our census in 2020 was 4,266 unofficially. So with a city that size, we have our own water company. We have a lean budget that's balanced, and our budget is just under $5 million for this coming year, as you all know from budget season. Roughly half of that comes from revenue from our water company. So we build up reserves, we run the water company as a city, and then we take revenue from the water company to help pay for the city to run. And it's roughly half of that, almost $5 million a year. Our other half of our budget comes from taxes, ad valorem taxes, sales taxes, and whatnot, but mostly property taxes ad valorem. This last year, as you know from budget season, we dug into what is usually a 12 to 13-month reserve in our water company down to 6 to 7 months. And we don't want to go below 6 months. If we go below 6 months, that's not financially sound. It also could potentially affect our bond rating, which means when we go, it doesn't mean that we won't get a bond if we go out and look for one. It just means that as a city, we will pay more interest on that bond. So, this is how we run the city. And what I would like to do before we open it up for questions, I would also like us to digest this as a council, really digest it over the next month, so that we can perhaps table this tonight and then come together in December and discuss this as a council with these two gentlemen present, obviously, to answer our questions. The other thing I'd really like to do as a mayor, and I think we owe it to our residents and our customers, is that I would like to give our residents and customers a month to digest this and get back to us with what they think. And I encourage everybody to call the city, call me, write me an email, write an email to all of us, or call all of us and tell us your concerns, your thoughts, your recommendations, so we can digest that and then come together as a council in December to discuss it and then hopefully approve a water rate structure and change that we need to do so that we can operate as a city. That's how important this is. So it's death and taxes. We have to be able to pay to run the city, and we got to pay for that water. So what I would like to do is, before we open it up to questions, which we'll do, is have you guys think about tabling this for a month to get those suggestions, those comments, and so that we can digest it as a council and come together in December and approve something. This tabling it for a month does not affect our revenue because we have to amend Ordinance 54 anyway. So what we can do is table it, come back and discuss it with citizens' comments and customer comments, and then approve something, and then we can actually amend Ordinance 54 in the consent agenda in January with those rates, and we don't lose any revenue, and we build up our reserves, if that's what the council decides. That's my point of view. And now what I'd like to do is open it up to questions to these gentlemen from the council. Jesse.
I'll defer to be last since I was part of it.
Yes, sir. Lisa.
Excellent presentation. I'm so glad I don't have to do any of this math. I've worked on this in years past with Jesse and sat down with him and worked the numbers. I do agree with the mayor that maybe we need to get some citizen feedback. That would probably be very wise to figure out what people are thinking. Though I'm inclined to accept C. It sounds like we need to address both the fixed charges and the volume charges, but I think it's imperative that we do get some more feedback from citizens before we move forward. But excellent as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Todd?
I guess my first comment is I actually managed to, I think, understand what you were telling me, so that's a very well done. If you can get it through my thick skull, you can probably get it through anybody's head. Well done in that regard, thanks. Yeah, we need to wait a month on this. I need to adjust more. I think we need to ask around, get people's opinions. I know it's going to be potentially a lot of input of, yeah, you can't raise what it's going to cost, but at least we'll get an opportunity to show why we need to make some changes. So let's go with a month. That's my input.
Thanks, Todd. Kay?
No, I agree. We should postpone it, table it.
Thank you, Kay. Jesse, floor's yours.
Okay, well, again, thank you to Kevin for putting the presentation together. I did run a lot of the cases, but I didn't put the presentation together, so he put it in a way that was understandable, and put some more information there than I've done in past years, so thank you for that. And I will point out that, got some information from our financial director about the income coming in, and we're pulling money out of the reserve fund for at least 8 months of the year, we're stay above, but we're still pulling money out. It's the last 4 months of the fiscal year that we're actually above, actually having an increase in there. So, yeah, it's very important that we watch the reserve considerably. So, thank you again for doing that. And I also agree on the waiting a month.
Okay. Well done, guys. So I think we probably just need a consensus with the council for table it for a month. Is this correct, Nancy? Yes. Okay. So can I just get a thumbs up from everybody? Okay. We're going to table this for a month, and then we will look forward to citizens, residents, and customers' comments and feedback for this presentation, and for what you're thinking out there. Let us know, please.
Can we, one thing, can we maybe put the presentation on the
I think
on the
it's
website?
already planned to be out there, right,
Okay.
Marissa?
So right now, it is in the council packet. We were waiting to see what happened tonight before we do anything else, but it will go on the website. And then once it's posted on the website, that will be shared to social media to get people to go to the website and look at the presentation.
Okay. Can you remove the hidden slide, the executive summary, so the
Yes.
public can see that also?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Sir, the floor is still yours for your monthly update.
Thank you. Get to talk a little bit more about Water Commission business. I know everybody's excited, but for the monthly update, I really don't have a whole lot there. We have moved our next two meetings to deconflict from the holiday weeks. And I think that is probably it, but our next regularly scheduled meeting then will be on Tuesday, November 16th at 6 p.m. right here in the City Council chambers. And that's it, sir.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else have anything for Chairman Mueller? Okay.
Yes, I think we should say, I hope you guys aren't disappointed that we're not making a decision this evening.
Oh, no, I think I like the idea of letting it get out there and letting people and getting input from people. I think that's actually a great idea. There's no problem with that at all. We just always get nervous to make sure that it's all going to get approved by the start of the year. But we already have a plan to take care of that, so it's all good.
I would encourage citizens to replay your presentation too, because it's so concise, and they can watch it and hear it, much like we did, even though we had it in our packet a week. I think that would be very helpful, so I would encourage citizens to do that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Kay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay, that concludes the Water Commission. On to item 10D, Wildlife Management Advisory Commission. Chairman Krasinski.
It's been a minute since
Good
I've
to
been
see
here.
you. The floor is yours, sir.
All right, so not a lot of update as far as kind of monthly, monthly update, but I guess we did agree or come to a consensus, or no, I guess we did pass a vote on our chair and vice chair, which I am chairing again this year, surprise, surprise. I'm the one who held up my hand, I guess, and then Shannon Drickta will be our vice chair this year. So I think those are kind of the two monthly updates. And then as far as our deer count, so there is, as you see in your packet on the screen, we did have a deer count on the 20th, the 26th, and the 31st of August. No real surprise here. Our acres per deer, let me make sure I'm saying this right, went down, meaning we have more density, more deer per our acreage here in Garden Ridge. So, nothing really surprising. We have not done any mitigation, trapping mitigation, anything in the past, I think, 2 years plus. So, we have seen an increase in deer, and we have seen just overall, estimated population growth. So, again, these are estimates. These are not hard and fast numbers that are, that people should hold our feet to the fire for. We didn't count every deer. This is an estimate on what we've seen. So this is a normal drive-by type consensus, or census, excuse me. So where's a better graph? Keep going. That, I think it's that one. Yeah. So you can see, obviously, we did some trapping mitigation there in 18, which affected populations in 19 and partially 20, and then as you can see, we've seen pretty significant estimated population growth in 2021. So that's kind of our update. I think our next meeting is in 2022. But yeah, we are treading water, if you will.
Thank you, David. Anybody have anything for Chairman of the Wildlife Commission? To the right, Jesse? Lisa? Todd?
I'm going to go with no for now.
Okay. Thanks for volunteering once again, Chairman.
Yep.
It's good to see you.
Yep, good to see y'all. Thank you.
Okay, on to item 10E, Parks Committee, Mr. Rod Chamberlain. Nice shirt.
Thank you. Thought I'd get in the spirit.
The floor is yours, sir.
It's too early for Christmas.
Said from the Grinch to my left.
Home Depot and everyone else. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the council. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it. We did not hold a general meeting in the month of October. However, we did hold two special meetings, October the 15th and the 27th, to discuss planned activities that were upcoming. Our next general meeting is scheduled for this coming Wednesday, November the 10th. And to give you an update on a previous item that was mentioned in the previous council meetings, City Ordinance number 24, we continue to evaluate that. There will be a discussion at the November 10th meeting on Ordinance number 24. Accomplishments since our last meeting, the total number of volunteer hours managed by the Parks Committee was 101 hours in October. 89 of those were provided by Parks Committee members and 12 were outside the Parks Committee membership. Our primary focus for the last 30 days has been the Eagle Scout project, finalizing the exercise station and opening it up to the public. Ground covering has been put out by the 4 exercise stations. If you get a chance, please stop by Paul Davis Park and take a look at them. A great job was done there. We're now working on installing 2 safety signs in accordance with the direction from City Hall before we open up to the public. Preparing for the fall cleanup at Paul Davis Park. It will be a week from this coming Saturday, November the 13th. During the month of October, Parks Committee volunteer Dr. Lee Williams continued to trim and clean out dead trees and branches around the area and remove them, so we're in a much better position for the 13th cleanup in November. The meadows, we continue to prep it for the upcoming winter, and we continued our prep work for the upcoming Christmas tree lighting event. And I have it from a very reliable source, talking directly to them. Santa Claus will be here. I'm going to repeat that. Santa Claus will be here on December 3rd, so please get the word out to the kids and for some of the grown-ups too. Okay. So we were really excited about that. What's planned for the next 60 days? The Eagle Scout Exercise Station project installed by Scout Joey Zerniak, installation of the safety signs and the opening of that actual facility. Host the actual cleanup at Paul Davis Park the week of Saturday, 11/13, start at 8 a.m., finish around 12 noon. Lunch and refreshments will be provided by the Parks Committee. So we can properly plan for lunch and refreshments. We're asking volunteers to let us know ahead of time how many are going to be attending. If you could do that by this coming Wednesday, the 10th, Veterans Day. You can reach the Parks Committee at gardenridgeparks@gmail.com to let us know, or get in touch with any of the Parks Committee members from that side. Extensive work will be done between now and December 3rd in preparation of the city's kickoff for the holiday season and the annual lighting of our Christmas tree. Mr. Mayor, at this time, I'd like to pause my presentation and just see if you or the council has any questions on the update.
Thank you, sir. Council? Sir, continue.
Okay. So we've already started communicating out and advising the public about our upcoming Christmas tree lighting on the November mailing that went out. Actually, on the back side, you have the flyer that the city went ahead and put together. Thank you, Kat, for that. Appreciate it big time. Special update, this will be our 7th annual Christmas tree lighting. It will be held on the first Friday in December 3rd. The sponsors that we have are North Park Audi and Korea Realty Group. And I appreciate the continued support we're getting from North Park Audi. We also will have our annual Christmas tree ornament. It's maroon in color. For the other, I think there was one that you may have, Mayor, that's available. That's basically in recognition and honoring our new members to our community, Davenport High School, from that side. We think that's kind of cool. We will be giving away a limited edition. These are limited editions. I want that clearly understood. So get them while you can. It's to raise funds for a local nonprofit organization. Last year, our community donated over $700 to support the Children's Advocacy Center of Comal County. That was an all-time record for us, and we're very proud of it, especially during the COVID time. As you know, each year the Parks Committee goes ahead and selects a nonprofit organization that we'd like to support. This year, we are looking to support St. Jude's Ranch for Children, SJRC, in the New Bronzeville chapter. SJRC Texas cares for children and families who have been affected by trauma, abuse, and neglect. So they're a very worthy person to go ahead and donate to and to help support. It's important to note 100% of all proceeds will go to provide financial assistance to this organization. Ornaments are available currently at City Hall, and they will also be available on the night of the Christmas tree lighting as well. All donations are appreciated big time. We will have a lighting of the Christmas tree. We have 3 of them, as you know. There also will be entertainment. Have been confirmed today. The GRES choir will be present. 65 4th and 5th graders will be singing their hearts out, and we're really excited about that. We also will have some pre-recorded favorites on the Christmas music side. Food, we're going to have 2 food trucks, Hot Dogs 34 and Sensational Salad Station will be on hand, and we will have our delicious hot cocoa with and without marshmallows available to you. Activities, letters to Santa, and we have it from a very reliable source, once again, that the library is going to make sure that all of those letters get collected up and get to Santa in time before Christmas. So we really appreciate the help that the library has given us. We also will have Santa Claus will be there to meet and greet the kids and to be able to say what they'd like to have for Christmas. The Christmas raffle will be there for both adults and for kids. And gingerbread house, photo opportunities as well will be abound to come into play. And we also will, if you want updates on this here, please check back with the city website and also the city marquee as we continue to get closer to December 3rd. But we are excited about this year's events and we're really looking forward to it. Last year was a drive-through. This year you'll be able to park your car, come up Santa Claus Lane, and come on in, have a cup of hot chocolate and see Santa, and go ahead and wish him a Merry Christmas as well. Any other questions for you, Mr. Mayor?
The letters to Santa include council and the mayor?
They do. As a matter of fact, we'll make sure that they are somewhere in the stack.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rod. Council, comments, questions? Merry Christmas.
And I thought the maroon was for the Aggie on council. So I'll take it that way anyway.
I'll see if I can get some coal brought in.
Mr. Grinch, do you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay.
Bah humbug.
Bah humbug. Okay.
Until after Thanksgiving.
No, I am pleased to hear we got the confirmation on the school, because that was, Rod's been really pursuing that, and thankfully we did get the confirmation.
Had some help this morning on it, which is good. So, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for what you do, and this is a wonderful community to live in because of everything that all of our volunteers and our residents do. Thanks, Rod, and to the entire Parks Committee. Outstanding. All right, 10F, Volunteer Garden Ridge. Nancy.
Okay. For the month of October, there were 245 total volunteer hours. 9 of those were for the bill stuffers. 135 were for the library and 101 for the Parks Committee.
Thanks, Nancy. Anybody have anything for Nancy with that, volunteer Garden Ridge? Thanks to our volunteers out there. Okay, that concludes item 10. On to item number 11 with all the thunder going on outside. Approvals and authorizations. Time for the council to do some work here. The following items are for discussion, consideration, and action. 11A, resolution number 486-11-2021, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Ridge, Texas, authorizing hiring of bond counsel on a contingency fee basis. Nancy, the floor is yours again.
The SIB loan application or agreement requires that we hire a bond counsel and have an agreement with them. The bond counsel will, this is their specialty. I asked our current law firm if they did any of that work, and I was informed no, that it is truly a specialty. They would be on a contingency basis. They would be the bond counsel for the city in any type of debt transaction that we engage in. They will do all the, everything. The documents, the guidance, legal opinions, filings for us. This firm, it's Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, Acosta, LLP of Austin, and this is a firm that we have been utilizing through debt that the city has secured in the past with Mr. Henderson, through Mr. Henderson, our financial advisor. So they are very familiar with Garden Ridge. They've worked for us in the past, but we do need to take the step and officially appointing them as our bond counsel.
Thank you, Nancy. So, council, this is a good thing. They have experience with us, keeps us safe and sound financially, and this is a good move for us, in my opinion. So, I'll open it up to discussion or questions.
I have no objection to it, but is this pretty typical for a city to have a bond counsel?
Yes, when you're securing debt.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great question, Lisa. Thanks. Todd? Okay. Okay. I will open it up to look for a motion to approve resolution number 486-11-2021.
I move to approve resolution number 486-112021 regarding hiring of a bond counsel.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion, council? Move it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, council. On to item 11B, ordinance number 210-11-2021, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Ridge, Texas, adopting board and commission policies and procedures, providing a cumulative and savings clause, providing for severability, and declaring an effective date. So some background on this before I turn it over to Marissa. A couple years ago, we approved as a council, I was on the council, ordinance 210, that put some, that was a little more guidance for our volunteer commissioners. And I emphasize volunteer commissioners out there. It was, what do I want to say here? The ordinance had some unintended consequences associated with it. Specifically, some restrictions with term limits with commissioners, some pretty hard restrictions on attendance and time. And those restrictions were not something that were placed upon the council as volunteers also, but elected officials.
Another unintended consequence was the amount of time that our city staff has to take every single month, not just to produce the minutes from this meeting and all of our commission meetings, and to come up with agendas and publish those, but also to track the attendance of all of our volunteer commissioners for how many meetings they have attended of their commission meetings, how many they have not attended, the reasons why, as well as have they attended 2 council meetings for that calendar year. And so the city staff has to track that every month, and that takes hours of tracking to not only write it down, but call the commissioners, find out why they were absent, and track all of that and put it in the agenda. The other unintended consequence is that it takes time in all of our commission meetings because Ordinance 210 is on that agenda. So they are compelled to discuss it and who's there, who's not there, who's missed 3 meetings in a row, who's about to miss 3 meetings in a row, and why. And it's not something that I think that we need to track that specifically for our city staff and for our volunteer commissioners. I also think that those restrictions with our volunteers and also having some open commission vacancies, that people could be hesitant to volunteer for a commission because of the restrictions that we're putting on them. So I'm not saying that we adopted this ordinance as a solution in search of a problem, but we have unintended consequences that I think we can alleviate with how we have amended this ordinance. And I know you guys have read it in your council packet to make it more time efficient and time saving for the staff and for our commissioners out there. So Marissa has done a very good job, an excellent job of amending this ordinance and cleaning it up. And she has passed it through the city staff. She's passed it through me. She's passed it through our council, Cynthia. And we recommend that you look at this and adopt it as amended. This was based on conversations with Nancy and Marissa, specifically, that I directed them to look at this and come up with this amendment. So with that, Marissa, you have it.
I'll begin with just general revisions that you see, and then we'll go into the substantive changes. So the format, I'm sure you've noticed first thing that it looks significantly different than the previous ordinance, but really it's just better use of space. I improved the flow of the document, made it easier to understand, and actually a good amount of the content stayed the same, just revised the structure into some full sentences and actually paragraph forms instead of how they were before. Also, we did remove some of the very specific language that was not only unnecessary to be in the ordinance, but it also was all outdated because it was so specific. We previously had reference to every commission that we have in any ordinance with the specific ordinance number that relates to them. Almost every single one of those numbers was actually wrong because it was outdated. There's just no reason to have that information there anyways. So that was a section that I took out. We also needed some clarification. Staff needed some clarification in a couple places so that we were universally applying this ordinance. One of those areas was the term length and the limit for the chair and the vice chair. The way it was worded before was actually so confusing that we applied it differently to 2 commissions recently. So that just gives you an idea of how we were trying to interpret the meaning of that ordinance. Another area that we clarified was how the staggered terms of office are established when a commission is first created. Onto the sections that we made some bigger changes in. The first one is the terms of office. So the revised ordinance removes the limit on number of terms a commissioner can serve, since City Council doesn't even have such a limit, and we don't have an abundance of people wishing to volunteer for commissions, so vacancies are already hard enough to fill as is. The next section is attendance. I would say this one probably caused the most unintended consequences on both staff and on volunteers. So this revised ordinance removes the automatic termination due to the number of absences, but it's worded to still allow for the commission to make a recommendation to have a commissioner terminated for cause due to excessive absences if they hinder the commission's ability to conduct meetings or make informed recommendations, which is really where absences do become an issue. If they're not able to have a meeting because they have too many people absent too often, or they can't make informed recommendations because of people missing meetings. So it still allows for that to happen and the recommendation brought to council. We just don't feel there's a magic number that can be universally applied to each commission. I mean, all the work of each commission can change based on the needs of the city. The number of meetings the commissions have can vary sometimes drastically. I mean, planning and zoning was meeting twice a month for a while. Then we have Corey Commission that meets every other month. So it just, we didn't think there's a magic number, so we just don't feel like there should be a strict policy about that. So the wording in this revised ordinance about attendance is more in line with how city council absences are treated. City council absences aren't something that is tracked like what we're currently doing for commissioners. And like the mayor said, the tracking of commissioner attendance for this purpose has also been a pretty time-consuming task on staff. So I think this revision will also increase staff productivity in other areas. Another section that we revised was the chair and the vice chair. This is just it's pretty minor, but we revised the ordinance to allow for the chair to deliver a written summary of the recommendations and updates to the city secretary prior to a city council meeting if there is not an available representative from the commission able to physically attend the city council meeting. We just wanted to be a little more understanding that, you know, life happens, things come up, so allowing for this to happen in those situations also takes that responsibility off of our city administrator to have to do that. And then the last section that we did some revisions in is training and education. The revised ordinance encourages staying informed through attending city council meetings or watching online, and encourages attending training sessions pertinent to the commission's responsibilities as determined by the city administrator and the chair. However, Open Meetings Act training and Public Information Act training remains a requirement, those are both requirements for council as well. Again, we feel that requiring a specific number of these, whether it's attending city council meetings or even the previous version of this ordinance actually required a specific number of trainings to be attended each year by each commissioner. We just felt that that was a little too demanding since city council doesn't have such requirements. So the ordinance currently in effect also didn't include any repercussions for not meeting these attendance or training requirements. Generally, you don't want to include a requirement or a restriction in any ordinance if there's not an enforcement procedure or a way of enforcing it. So we just felt like this was the best route to go with the wording that we kept in here and the things that we decided to change. Otherwise, everything else in here pretty much stayed the same. You might see rewording in a couple of areas to make things make sense, but the overall meaning of everything else in here stayed the same. I'll answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Marissa. Well done. Council, open it up for discussion. To my right, Jesse.
Yeah, the attendance for the commissioners, that always concerned me when you have the Corey, meeting twice, every other month, so 6 times a year, and having the same requirement for P and Z to, attend 4 meetings, I thought was unfair. So, yeah, I thought we always need to have a percentage or something, so that helps that part. So, like I said, I thought that was unfair on that part. That's all I have at this point.
Thanks, Jesse. Lisa?
All good changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Todd? Okay. Okay. No? Okay. If there's no other discussions and everybody's good, I'd like to have a motion to approve amended ordinance number 210-11, 2021. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 210-11, 2021.
Motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Outstanding. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you, council. Okay, that concludes item number 11. On to item number 12, updates, city council projects. Number 1, City of Garden Ridge 50th Anniversary Committee. We had our first meeting last week, a week ago Tuesday. It was wonderful. We have a very good cross-section of city staff, council, myself, and residents to help us plan our 50th anniversary celebration, which is going to be ongoing throughout 2022. As a reminder, we turned 50 as a city on July 6th, 2022. That's when the ordinance was signed establishing us as a city. But we're going to participate. We're going to help augment the July 4th celebration, if you will. But Rod, you guys still have your July 4th celebration. We're just going to add to that a little bit. And we have some thoughts and ideas that were tremendous to go through the year. And I'd like to turn it over to Kay, who's got tons more information on this, if you'd like to share. Kay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, as the mayor said, we have a terrific committee. This is not a one-person job nor a two-person job. And we had a fabulous suggestion by a person who happens to be sitting on my right, that we extend this. There's so much we want to do, that we extend this not so much necessarily throughout the year, which we will do, but throughout the month of July, try to schedule different events throughout the month of July. And some ideas, and everyone participated. So in no particular order, we've thought about having, and I've reached out to someone, a contact information, for example, having someone offer a service at the Bracken United Methodist Church in German, with a tip of the hat to our heritage. We have talked about giveaways, you know, the traditional maybe coins, T-shirts, koozies, that type of thing that would would appeal to a broad range of citizens. We're considering a raffle. We're considering things like geocaching. We're considering scavenger hunt throughout the city. None of this would be isolated necessarily to the City Hall complex. Maybe even a band at some point, maybe a 70s band to honor the day we were born. I mean, the year we were born. We also definitely want a tiered level of sponsorships. One figure was proposed that I said, hold on, hold on. I'd like to be a gold sponsor, but I'm not going up there. So we may have an Uber sponsor. So we may have, anyway, we'll have tiered level of sponsorships. And we hope to do, much like we did when this building was created, plaques to honor, sponsorships and so on. Possibly even doing the good old-fashioned bricks. You can buy a brick and have those installed. We've been thinking about bricks at at Paul Davis Park for years. So possibly over there or possibly in the City Hall complex. But bricks to honor residents or just, it'd be your choice at this point. We don't have it that finite yet. We're considering a special Christmas ornament, not to take away from the one we're doing this year. That's for this year. We're considering, possibly even a time capsule. So our resident historian, Ms. Crossland, is back in touch with a number of the people that she has known and does know and has known, and different things are thrown out like, different people, different families, if you will. Bob and I'm going to name them, just not in any order. Bob and Cindy Fleming, Stanley George, our great guy here. His parents are still here. General Swenson and his wife. So just different historical things. And Carl and Barbara Schultz. They were the either 6th or 7th house to be built in Garden Ridge. So just, again, most of that historical knowledge comes from Linda, and so we'll be pursuing that. We also thought about maybe an art show, either for the high school and the elementary, or both. I mean, either or both. Again, there's too much we want to do. We do have a limited budget. We will be looking for sponsors. But there's too much we want to do just on the July 4th or July 6th, if what have you. So spread it out specifically through July, but also up to and including July 6th. And something else that we had hoped to do, there were all kinds of suggestions for what to put in the calendar, but we were considering a pictorial calendar for the year. We're getting a late start, so we don't know if we can get that done or not, but something, maybe Snowmegadon would be a nice picture. We thought, well, let your imagination run wild, the types of calendars we could put together. But anyway, so that's again just a scattershot. It was, our first meeting was primarily a brainstorming session. So we remain open to any and all ideas, or if you've done this before, any of the ideas that maybe has provoked an idea in your mind, please reach out to us. We'll go from there.
Excellent job. Our next meeting is next week, right, Kat?
Right.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Garden Ridge. Thanks, Kay. Anything else?
No, unless you have something.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get the calendar done. All right, on to item number 13, discussion of future agenda items. Council? Jesse? No? Lise? Todd? Okay.
Just keeping under the updates, keeping which Marissa's already doing. So.
We're there. Outstanding. That moves us on to item number 14, citizen comment period. You don't have to have signed up to speak now. If you want to come up and address the council or the city at the dais, please do so. You have 2 minutes to do that. I see Dr. Miller on his way up here. Good to see you, sir. If you could make sure the mic's on. There you go. Thank you.
Jim Miller, 9910 Marie Meadow. This is what I missed, is being chair of P&Z. I couldn't listen to the rest of it because I was so nervous about my presentation to you guys. And for 5 years, I haven't been able to hear what you guys were talking about. That may be good, may be bad, I don't know. I wrote down 3 things. Number 1, thank you, Marissa, for revising 210. And thank you, council, for approving that. That was the bane of my existence as the chairman of P&Z. Every month or every other month, we had to deal with something with 210. I think the changes will do the city well. Number 2, the water bill, the water presentation, excellent presentation. My eyes glassed over about halfway through. When you put it online, I think I'll be able to digest it a little better. Bottom line, I think everybody's going to know is how much more per month is it going to cost them to be. And for myself standing here, I want to know how much more a month it's going to cost me. Okay, that's a selfish thing, but that's what everybody's going to ask. And the consequences of running out of our reserves and the consequences of down the line of running out of reserves, what it means to the city. If we look at those things, then people may understand, oh, this is why we got to do this. And number 3, the deer thing. I was here for the first go-round with the deer thing, the brouhaha, the deer brouhaha. Are we heading towards another deer brouhaha? That's what I want to know. And we're going to have a survey of what we're going to do because the numbers are going up. And I want to know, is council starting to plan for that? Because, Mayor, you may not want to run again if we have another deer brouhaha. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Anybody else in the audience that wishes to come up and address the council and the city? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes citizen comment. On to item number 15, reports and comments from mayor and city council members. I'm going to start on my left. K, any of those items you'd like to address?
That's why you started over
Sorry, you okay? Okay.
No, thank you.
Todd?
I guess I'm going to jump on Boy Scouts. As of yesterday evening, the city of Garden Ridge has another Eagle Scout. Charlie Hogue passed his Eagle board yesterday evening, so I'd like to get him here into council either December or January. I'll have to see when he's available as well. The previous mayor started that. I'd kind of like to continue doing that. I love the idea. So we've got a couple more that are going to cycle through here pretty quickly, as you heard from Parks and everything else with the things the scouts have been doing for us. So I'll roll them in here.
Could we get everybody from calendar year 21 that's become an Eagle Scout in here from 828?
That's a great question. We've had some of them in here already.
Right. I think it'd be fun to recognize all up in front of the
Calendar
dais.
year 21. Let me ask the question. It's not a
For
problem.
December.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll see. At a minimum, we'll get some of them.
Yeah.
Some
Get
of them
Char-
may have
we
wandered
need
off the
Charlie up there,
reservation
for sure.
and headed off to bigger and better
Joey.
things like college, et cetera.
Right.
So, then I won't talk about the school bond. I think everybody knows about it, that, or Lisa's going to talk about it.
Is that it?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Since one of us, at least up here, is a Lions Club member, the Lions Club Food Festival now and auction, another great event. It didn't happen last year because of COVID. Just for whoever's watching out there, come on out, enjoy it. It's going to be a great event, I'm sure. I'm looking forward to it. And yes, there's going to be firewood auctioned off again and all kinds of good stuff. So come on out and enjoy it.
Another wonderful volunteer organization. He does. Lions Club does so many things for our community. Thanks, Todd. Lisa? You don't want to talk Kamal? Okay, great. Jesse?
One thing is, when we talked about the car show earlier, I failed to thank the PD for the volunteers we had. The chief was actually one of the cooks, so appreciate that. And also Public Works, for helping out with getting the parking area ready, getting the dumpsters out of the way, backfilling with the gravel there. Appreciate all the work that the Public Works did for getting them ready. And of course, the library for having the kids' activities. So anyway, thank you for that. Sorry about forgetting that earlier.
No worries. Thanks for mentioning it now. Is that it? Okay. Families of Garden Ridge Adopt a Highway Program cleanup. Our next cleanup is going to be, Saturday, the 5th of December? Do I have that right? 4th. I'm sorry, Saturday, the 4th of December, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll meet at NEBC front parking lot, and I will send out an email to our volunteers. And I think we should be able to get the athletic department from Davenport High School to come out for their service project that day too. So if you see a bunch of people running around on 2252 in fashionable orange safety vests, you know what's going on. So love to see council there. Speaking of seeing council there, our Northeast Partnership monthly luncheon is canceled for the month of November because of Veterans Day, but it will be in December. And I'd love to have a big showing if you guys can make it in December at Olympic Hills Country Club at 11:30. Do we know the date of that yet, Nancy? I haven't gotten that yet. Second Thursday.
I think it's probably December 9th.
Yeah, December 9th. So love to see you all there, as well as we have our Kamal County Luncheon next week too. I'd love to see you guys there as well. With that, that's all I have. Anybody else have anything else for item number 15? Okay, continuing on to item 16, executive session. I'm going to read this verbatim. The City Council will recess its open meeting and reconvene in executive session. 16A, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0711 and 551.0712, consultation with attorney, and 551.072, deliberations about real property. 16A1, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person, and legal advice on same. Wastewater utility easement acquisition and property acquisition for city building project and related matters. 16A2, a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Texas Government Code Chapter 551 regarding possible computer data breach, mayor's access and personal computer, and related investigation. So with that said, we will recess at 8:10 p.m., and then we will reconvene in executive session at 8:20. Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned at 9:30 p.m.